Now we are live. So hey, and welcome to Toast. This beautiful Wednesday evening, we have James Deere over here coming to tell us some stories about, where were we?
Guatemala.
Guatemala.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that where you got your sweater, by the way?
This sweater I got in Peru. You were with me for all of Guatemala, so you would recognize this sweater.
I guess that's true.
Okay, so Guatemala was great. So let's just start off, why did we go to Guatemala? And of course we have tons of stories, so we're only going to tell a few. Why did we go to Guatemala?
We went to Guatemala because I needed to take a trip, and then you were already planning on starting your next venture into teaching somewhere, I believe, and you knew you wanted to go to South America. So we're like, hey, this kind of works out. We found some really good prices for planes or tickets. And so yeah, I think that's pretty much that. Oh, and also you had your cousin Vanessa who was living there too.
Yeah. So we went to visit my cousin. We had a good time. We'll talk about that story in a little bit, but we're gonna talk about after the first weekend with my cousin, and we were walking, and we rented a car, right? And we rented a car.
Yeah.
And we named the car Jacobito.
Yeah.
So little Jacob, and
Jacob,
and we drove to our first destination, not knowing anything about the roads in Guatemala. And so let's start from leaving Guatemala City with this rental car.
Yes.
So,
Yes. So we ended up. It was me, you, and Vanessa. So your cousin, which they may not. So yeah. I mean, I don't remember exactly the drive that we had from Guatemala City to Atitlan. I just remember playing music, and there's always this really big pressure on the person who's playing music in the car, right? And it's especially if you're someone who's really kind of passionate about music, which I would have to say that I am. And it's this weird thing where sometimes you play stuff and you're like, oh my god, are they gonna like it? And then I remember playing this awesome Fleet Foxes song because we were kind of going through the mountains. And this is a little thing, I don't think we've ever talked about it. And I remember you guys just being yeah, so can we play something a little bit more lively, And I was like, okay, Michael Jackson it is. And that's what pretty much happened.
And we listened to a lot of Michael Jackson.
Oh, yes, a lot of Michael Jackson.
We did.
Yeah.
Okay, so aside from Atitlan, we ended up so I'm talking about when we left Guatemala City the second time. So we went to Atitlan, we had some fun. We'll tell those stories and the pretty fun stories over there.
Yeah.
But let's talk about when we went to I don't remember what it's called, Lanquin. So we went to the Zephyr Lodge. So we're driving to the Zephyr Lodge, right? And we're driving to this hostel that many people have told us about. You can't even book it on Hostel World. You can't book it on Booking.com. You need to email them. That was crazy. So
archaic.
James took care of emailing them.
Yes.
And then we just kind of drove there, and we had this tiny little car comparable to a Fiat 500, but the Chevy version.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good explanation of Jacobito.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. Yeah. It was a really small car, and the roads are just complete shit.
Oh my goodness.
So and luckily I didn't have to drive, which is kind of my way out because I don't drive manual. Just kind of nice. So all the responsibility was on Jordan's shoulders, but that we'll get to a little bit later.
Yeah. So that drive was intense. So most of it was pretty decent highway. We hit some crazy construction where they're carving out the side of a cliff, and it was great because for this drive we decided hey, we're going kind of to a party hostel, so we should kind of get this party started a little bit. So we bought a little bit of the local sauce over there, and I stained the shirt actually. You gave me at some point. James is handing me this Nutella, a pita. You get these little pita breads, the little tortillas, right? And he puts Nutella and a banana in it, and a piece of banana falls out and just stains my white shirt. And it's funny because James is the guy who gave me that shirt. So
yeah, and it was funny too because I remember the construction you're talking about. I kind of forgot about that, but it was just this giant thing where you feel like you're in some kind of weird sci-fi movie, but that kind of was filmed in the 1950s and kind of tried to predict what 2018 or 17 would be like, but it really wasn't. Anyways, it was just this huge messed up thing. And we were listening to this podcast. What was it? It was this philosophy podcast, and it was the boringest thing ever. And I was just oh my god, what the hell is happening with our lives right now? And we were stuck there for like 3 hours. It was really intense. It was really,
crazy.
really intense, yeah.
All that aside, we ended up getting finally to Zephyr Lodge. We got to Lankeen, and when we're getting there, the road was insane. I'd never driven, at least at that moment. Little did I know what would happen a few days later, of course. We drove on the worst road I've ever driven on, and I've driven and rented cars everywhere. That was, and it still is, the worst road I've ever driven on.
Yeah.
But we made it there. We parked. We paid for parking at a gas station. We get to Zephyr Lodge. So set the stage. What is Zephyr Lodge? It was amazing.
Right. Okay. So basically, the way that we found out about Zephyr Lodge is one of my colleagues from back then, from back then, like around like a year and a half ago, because we actually went. I think was it January?
Yeah.
January of 2018. And one of my colleagues at the time had been there. She's like, "You gotta go. It's really amazing. It was great. Like you have like this amazing view, yada yada." And we're like, "Okay, well, why not?" Because we were already going there. So why not go to this spot that we have a solid recommendation for? So we ended up going there, and I'm not sure if you remember, but when we actually parked the car before getting to Zephyr Lodge, there was like bodyguards at the gas station with shotguns, which was just like the craziest thing ever. But anyways, that all aside, the shotguns are very popular, I think, or a very popular accessory. Here we have like small dogs and poodles. There they have shotguns. So, we basically got there. We had to grab one of those. What's like the little carts that they drive? What's that called?
Yeah, like
again?
the little tuk-tuks, right? So we had tuk-tuks because we tried to drive up to Zephyr Lodge, and then we got right to the base of the hostel, and we realized like it was basically a 90-degree wall to get up to the hostel, and it was insane.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we ended up having to like park at this gas station. The dude with the shotgun basically, hustled us to be like, "Yeah, I'll definitely watch your car," but in like 5 hours it's gonna be a different guy, and he's gonna be like, "What? We're watching this car? No,
different guy, same shotgun."
Different guy, same shotgun.
Yeah.
And so we get to Zephyr Lodge, and Zephyr Lodge was awesome. I'm talking about like a river down below, and you're at this like beautiful paradise with like tons of people, but you really don't have much to do in Lankeen. There's like, it's a small town, there's nothing there. You just have a few hostels, and we had a pool and a pool bar, and it was like a very, party-esque hostel with also like daily excursions and things like that. So it was great, and it was huge, and it was all like earthshipy and built with bottles. So our like room was not like, it was insulated, but they didn't have any heating or anything.
It was just so to give a little bit of context. Every time that I had traveled before this, I'd always stayed in like Airbnbs or hotels because I'm posh like that. But like this time that we went there, it was one of my first times in a hostel. And I was just completely blown away, right? Like there was just so much space. You're in the middle of this mountainous area, and you had this just amazing view of what seemed to be like, I don't know, just like this green fucking mountainous area. Anyways, it was very meditative if you wanted it to be, but at the same time, it could be very sort of debaucherous, which was interesting in itself too. Yeah,
debaucherous. I don't know what you're talking about. So, let's get into it. What happened at Zephyr Lodge? Like we stayed there for like 3 nights. It was crazy. A little bit on the expensive side for a hostel. Well worth it. So we get there, and this hostel. I think the first night there was like a tournament of sorts, right? What was it? Beer pong or flip cup? I think it was beer pong.
I think it was beer pong the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Beer pong was it, indeed. So we ended up joining that beer pong tournament. And, it's funny because sometimes we don't realize it as Canadians that, like, we're very avid sort of, like, beer pong players and that we, like, play this on a regular basis. It's like you go to other countries and it's like they play card games and they'll play pool. I mean, I don't know. But we play beer pong, and we've all played it a lot.
So we played beer pong. We had a pretty saucy night the first time, and we were introduced to that amazing game, which was one person loses and everybody else wins.
Yes,
right?
That was a revelation. I think that game pretty much made it so that Zephyr Lodge was one of the most unforgettable travel experiences of my life.
Yeah, and it's a big money grab. It's good for the hostel, right? They buy shots. So the idea is very simple. You take a dice, and everybody takes a dice, and you roll them, right? And whoever gets the lowest number buys shots for everybody who rolled a dice.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was dangerous. It was dangerous, and I think in that moment you really see like the danger of the theory of momentum, because it just seemed like we were like, I don't know, like 8 to 10 people playing. But it would always be like the same 2 or 3 people that were losing.
Yeah,
Anyways,
they're rolling ones and twos, and all you need to do, you roll a 3 and you're pretty happy. You roll a 6, you're like, all right, dude,
but that's why earlier when you said like Zephyr Lodge was relatively expensive for you, like it was cheap for me, man. Like I didn't have to buy any shots. I was doing good. I was good at that game.
Yeah, I was one of those guys who wasn't rolling too high, or at least not consistently. No. So we party the first night. We rolled a lot of dice, and some of us paid a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, we made a lot of friends, and that was what was important, because then the next day we went to Semukchampe, which is one of those like beautiful touristy areas, natural pools. You do a small hike, and there's like literally a waterfall, like a massive roaring raging rapids waterfall going under what are like platforms of natural pools. So you're kind of like sliding and jumping, and I almost broke my face at some point.
Yes, that's true. You did almost break that beautiful face of yours. Luckily you would have had the beard, most likely, to protect you against the impact. But I remember there was this it was this funny thing where if you're a sort of regular listener of this podcast, you probably know by now that like Jordan is a very sociable person. So the thing is that usually when you go to these hostels and you go on these excursions, there's always like, a one bus that'll take, all the participants of this excursion to this one location, right? And that's pretty much what happened. But the thing is that like, I feel like I'm a relatively sociable person, but at the same time, sometimes I need to ease into it. Whereas Jordan is just like, it's really easy for him, and kudos to you for that. And
I start screaming from the second minute on the bus.
Pretty much. But what this means is that when we're like in this space, in this van with like 10 to 15 people, and me and Jordan are there, and he gets like the ball rolling, it's like we're gonna know everyone's names and everyone's backstory within like just a few minutes usually. So by the time we ended up getting there, it was like, we had already made like a bunch of friends. So we were like 10 people going through like these basins of water. It was just like this beautiful sort of natural landscape. But like at the same time, it felt like we were just like with a bunch of close friends. It was a really cool experience.
And that was one of the cool things, is that like as soon as we like got back from the excursion, we were best friends with all these people, and we're hanging on the back of these like 4x4s taking us there. There's not enough space inside, so we're literally just holding onto bars, hanging from the outside. And then when we get back to the hostel, we're best friends with everybody, and we found out that night there was no event, right? So usually that hostel, because it's a party hostel, kind of had a drinking event every night. And so I kind of went to them and I was like, yo, what up? Like, there's no event. Like, we're here only for 3 nights. Like, we don't want just 2 nights of partying. We came here to party. The rest of our trip's going to be serious. It wasn't. But spoiler alert, a little bit of foreshadowing. And so we ended up going there, and I go to the guys and they're like, well, if you host something, if you want to do a tournament or something, like, yeah, we'll let you drink for free all night. And that's like an offer you can't refuse. That's, so it was like, all right. So I signed the contract. I didn't get my brains on the paper, and Godfather reference. And I go and I host the Flip Cup tournament, and I was so adamant and so excited, and I was like, you guys need to sign up, teams of 2. And I was like, Flip Cup, and I got like all the tables ready and everything, and I was stoked. And we got to give away bottles of like tequila at the end. So not only did I get to give these away to people were very happy that I hosted this tournament, so they were giving me their alcohol, plus I was drinking for free. It was debauchery.
It was amazing. It was like, basically, damn it, the Sabres just scored. But basically, like what we had was, there's, like Jordan was saying, there was like this event every day, where you would have, I would say like 30 to 40 participants. Like there were big tournaments, right? And so like I think we may have like we didn't talk about like the trivia night, because we also had the trivia night. But the night that you hosted that, I was just like, I remember like the entire place just being completely still, and then all you had was Jordan on this pedestal just being like, okay guys, we're doing a Flip Cup tournament. And it was, everyone was like, well actually half the people, pretty much, actually 3/4 of the people, everyone who was not Canadian was like, what's Flip Cup? Like, how do I play the Flip Cup? Anyway, so we ended up starting he ended up starting this thing, and it was great because everyone got along. And for those who know what Flip Cup is, let's just be honest here. It's a great way to get nice and saucy. You get nice and lit for sure.
So nobody escaped the wrath of the free flowing beer. And the worst thing is they do like a very American mentality there, which is like, yeah, everything's just on your tab and you pay at the end. So you don't feel like you're spending money, because you're not spending money until the moment where you're like, here's the key, just take my credit card. Actually, charge the credit card. I'm going to call them and tell them that it's stolen. So that was...
It made for a little bit of a surprise after the 3 days. But, in retrospect, you're like, oh, I had a good time. I'll pay for it. It's fine, Yeah. But yeah, so that was a crazy, crazy night.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then flip cupping was networking, because then the next day, so we made a lot of more friends at the hostel, everybody who wasn't at Samuk Champé with us. And we ended up, planning to go tubing with them, which was something that we weren't really planning on. So there's also like a really lazy, calm river nearby.
Oh, yeah.
And we decided, with all these Canadian kids from Saskatchewan, Saskatoon, right? We decided,
Same.
yes, exactly. Yeah. And so we decided we're going to go with these guys, and we're going to raft down or tube down this thing. And the greatest thing about this hostel is they give you the option of how many beers you want to bring tubing with you.
And so yes, and also, sorry, but let's also understand that there's no limit to like the number of beers you can take too. Like they have this sort of like I don't know how to like primitive like spreadsheet kind of laid out, and the space for you to write down like how many beers you want to take is like wide enough for you to put in like 3 digits. Let's just put that out there, okay?
We were modest, because you're supposed to leave at like 10 or 11 a.m. So we were modest. We're like, I don't know. We're already at a party hostel. We probably shouldn't be like taking too many with us. We were thinking like 2 would be good, because it's like an hour or so of tubing. I think we ended up writing 3 or 4, and maybe 3.
Did we?
And we wrote a couple.
For some reason, I'm thinking like 7.
No, not how many we drank, but how many we wrote.
Oh,
yeah,
yes,
and the other Canadians from Saskatchewan ended up writing like 7 each, so we kind of all evened out at like a solid 5 by the end of it. But so we go out tubing, and it was great, right? These guys come out on tubes with us, right? So car drops us off with a bunch of tubes, and they come on the river, and this guy literally has like a bucket of beers. He's in the tube, and he's more than pregnant. He was giving birth to
honestly,
septuplets.
Watching this guy go about his day carrying this sort of like net, this kind of like net. Like when you're in elementary school and your gym teacher comes out and has like a bunch of these dodgeballs and volleyballs in this like wide sort of like net, and it's like tied at the top. Like picture that, but just like filled with beer, right? So that he can actually drag it along in the river, in the lazy river, as he's floating on his tube, which is amazing, by the way. But I just remember looking at the guy and being like, wow, I've been living my life all wrong. Like, this guy's he's an engineer. This guy is a fucking...
He figured it out, and he didn't even, like, try.
Oh,
it was just like, wait, you have a net for soccer balls to bring, like, 18 soccer balls? Like, I can sell beer in that.
Genius. It was absolutely genius. But I think one of the great things about this too is, again, like as we were saying, how we met all this sort of plethora of people. There was these like 3 or 4 guys from Amsterdam or around there. I don't remember exactly. There was like a Winston. There was like a Charles or something like that. These guys, if we were alone, we would have had an amazing time. But with them, it was just, these guys were absolutely ridiculous. If ever you guys have a chance to go to Amsterdam, go there. The people are great. My sample size is a little small, but it's awesome. I would go. I would live there.
Yeah, it was great because we got back from the tubing really early, and we started again on rolling the dice.
Yes.
We were going crazy. And this one guy, was named Juan. He had I swear there was like a magnet to the table, like glued to his 6, and the 6 is on the bottom and the 1 is on the top. So he kept rolling these 1s. I'm telling you, this guy, he couldn't roll a 2 if his life depended on it. He bought shots for everybody for hours. And he was from Nicaragua El Salvador.
Yes,
he was El Salvadorian. So not the type of guy who could probably afford buying, multiple rounds of shots for, 12 participants.
No, I think he was good, he was well off, but I think it was the whole concept of this game is that there's one loser and there's plenty of winners. So what that basically means is that there's one person who's having a really bad time, and everyone else is having a ball of a time because they're drinking for free, and he just happened to be that one, poor soul that was not having such a good time. Yeah. Poor Juan.
We foot him the bill, but we didn't try. I mean, he was consequence of his actions, I suppose.
Luck.
And so we played a lot. We rolled a lot. We ended up, getting a lot of free shots. We ended up dancing on the table when One More Time came on. We were like, one more time.
That was great. I have a video of that. That was amazing.
Yeah.
The pool game.
The pool game. So what happened in the pool game?
So basically what happened in the pool game was I was playing with Jordan, and Jordan was like, yeah, I'm pretty good, And I know myself, and pretty much any of my friends who've ever seen me play pool, I am literally like the worst pool player ever. And I'm not sure if it's because I just have zero accuracy or it's because I just have like zero patience for any of this shit. But anyways, I'm a terrible pool player, and we're playing against these two guys from Amsterdam. And I mean, luckily for me, they were just as bad as I was, right?
Yeah.
Like, they were terrible. But the thing is that take into consideration that we had played about like 20 to 30 rounds of this like shot game. So we were all completely destroyed. And I got to say, I played the best game of pool in my entire life. I was looking good. I was looking good.
That guy was going like speed and precision, and he was missing every shot. He was like aiming super slowly, and it's all about speed and precision.
Literally,
right?
like the wind around us would just stall, and all you would hear was like, concentration and precision is all you need to win. And he would literally repeat this to himself, like some kind of mantra, every time he would look at the ball that he wanted to strike. And he would miss every fucking time.
Every time.
Terrible.
And it was great because we were taking like breaks. Like so this is a hostel. You're not allowed to bring your own alcohol. So I dislike hostels that tell you you're not allowed to bring outside alcohol. Like, come on, you're a hostel. I understand you need to make money, but at the same time, you're charging for excursions, all that.
Yeah.
And so we brought in a buttload, and we just kept mixing it with like weird things and random bottles, like soda bottles and things like that.
Oh, it was disgusting, but delicious. And let's be honest here, okay? Like, what we really wanted to do with all this is we wanted to help the general economy of Guatemala by going out to these small family-owned shops and buying alcohol from them instead of giving it to the man who was the fucking owners of the goddamn hostel, who are getting an international fucking recognition for
They're
all this.
getting a nice paycheck. When we were on our way back from Samuchampe, we got the guy to stop at like the local. There's one shop in the entire town of Lanquin. Yeah. We got him to stop. We're like, look, he knows that we're not allowed alcohol, but he's not the owner, so he doesn't care. These are all his friends. These are his neighbors, right? So like, we bought alcohol, and he helped us sneak it in.
He probably got a cut off it.
Probably. He's like, I'm not allowed to stop here, but so I'm doing that for you. So hermano, ayúdame. Okay, so that was the story, a little bit of Zephyr Lodge. I think there's still a lot more to it, like my falling on a face on a balance board.
That was a lot of fun. So, when you're at when you're at a party, right, and you're there with one of your friends and you don't really know anyone else. That was kind of the context. And think of it as like,
I'm the friend.
So Jordan's the friend, and so we're basically there having supper, and the food at Zephyr Lodge, by the way, was excellent. Like for the price. Anyways, I'll save my Yelp review for another time. But so we're there and we're eating, and Jordan sees this guy because there's this local band playing, and the guy's playing the guitar while standing on like what's it called, a balance board?
Yeah.
He's on a balance board. I'm drinking way too much beer because I'm burping. But like, he's on this balance board and he's playing the guitar and he's ripping it. He's doing a great job. And then like afterwards, when they stop playing, Jordan's like, oh, okay, you know what? I think I can try this. I'm gonna do it. Ayo. He's like, I think I can do this. Why not? I'm gonna try this out. And so basically, the last time, or the last image in my head that I have of Jordan that night was him just balancing on the board. And then I looked away. And I think it was like, 11 o'clock at night, and I didn't see you for the rest of the night. And then what happened exactly? I think you can tell a better story than I can.
I fell on my face, okay? I was like, a balance board, for those of you who don't know, is basically like a tube, a cylinder, and that cylinder varies in size, and that increases or decreases the difficulty of a balance board. This balance board had a tube under it, and you put a plank of wood on this cylinder, and you're supposed to balance yourself. So I'm like, I've been snowboarding for 20 years, I got this shit. And clearly I did not get that shit, so I fell, and I've never fallen that fast. It's like when you slip on ice and you just really like, blah. It's kind of like happens. It's over before you even knew it was happening.
Yeah, like think of like, when you have those dreams where like you're just out of nowhere suddenly falling and then you wake up. Well, it's kind of the opposite, where Jordan kind of was already awake, was suddenly falling, and then went to bed. Something.
So I went to bed, and then anyways, Zephyr Lodge continued doing its thing. The food was really good, though. The curry. If you guys go to Guatemala, this is like, take this as an ad. There are sponsors for today's episode. Is the Zephyr Lodge? They're hopefully going to give me 1 or 2 free beers by mentioning them 76 times in this video.
It's a great place for all your memories.
We're going to continue talking a little bit about Guatemala. We're going to make the next episode of Toast. We're going to stop this Instagram live, and we're going to continue, and we're going to tell one more story.
I completely forgot we were live. But before we leave, I just want to say one last thing. The coffee in Guatemala, okay? And for those who know me, know that I'm a bit of like, I'm a little pretentious with my coffee. The coffee in Guatemala was literally like the most, like you have 1 cup of that, and it's like you're good to go for like a week. You're good to go. It's like you want to tackle the day. You're good. You're so good. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say. The coffee's amazing. Coffee's great. Just do it. Drink
That's
coffee.
good.
Yeah.
And ladies on the side of the road selling tacos. I mean, you can't go wrong. All right. You can't go wrong? No, you can't.
Can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with the tacos on the side road tacos. Yep.